my witch peeps. Welcome back to Cat's Tea and Witchcraft. If you are new, my name is Fauna and I am your host. Today's episode is going to go over crystals and rocks, whatever you call them. I know some people call them stones, some call them rocks, some call them crystals, but I'm just going to use the term crystals today as an overall term for them. Crystals is one of those things that many witches early on in their path tend to jump into because it's something physically tangible for them to use, and it's colorful, they're bright, but then there are witches that just completely cannot stand using crystals and don't use them at all. But if you are interested in them, this is going to be just a really quick introductory on some things that you should think about when using them. So I'm going to go over some basic terms under what the concept of what crystals are, and the best and easiest way for me to have found this definition, it's under crystal healing. So I'm going to go over the term crystal healing and what it is. Crystal healing is a pseudoscience alternative medicine technique that uses semi-precious stones and crystals such as quartz, amethyst, or opals. Adherents of the technique claim that these have healing powers, although there is no scientific basis for this claim. In one method, the practitioner places crystals on different parts of the body, often corresponding to chakras, or else the practitioner places crystals around the body in an attempt to construct an energy grid. This is reported to surround the client with healing energy. Despite this, scientific investigations have not validated claims that these energy grids actually exist, nor is there any evidence that crystal healing has any greater effect upon the body than any other placebo. For these reasons, it is a pseudoscience. This definition I pulled off of Wikipedia because it's very easy to access and just get a general definition of what things are. I know people don't really use Wikipedia for like actual essays and stuff they might write in school or for careers, but this is something that is a very broad statement that can help you just kind of recognize the idea of what crystals are and what some people think about them and what others do not. I did also mention in that definition a pseudoscience. If you don't know what a pseudoscience is, here is the definition of pseudoscience. Again, I'm reading this off of Wikipedia because it's the easiest, most condensed bit of information that you may be able to understand. So what Wikipedia says is pseudoscience consists of statements, beliefs, or practices that are claimed to be both scientific and factual, but are incomplete with the scientific method. Pseudoscience is often characterized by contradictory, exaggerated, or unfalsified claims, reliance on confirmation bias rather than rigorous attempts at refutation, lack of openness to evaluations by other experts, absence of systematic practices when developed hypotheses, and continued adherence long after pseudoscience hypotheses have been experimentally discredited. So if none of that makes sense to you, pretty much it comes down to there is no proof that crystals in particular or anything that is considered a pseudoscience actually works. Also mentioned a minute ago is the idea of a placebo effect. If you know what a placebo effect is, the example of you're given a pill, like a sugar pill, and you're told that it's supposed to make you feel better, and then it does make you feel better. And the idea is that it only made you feel better is because it was told that it would, not that it actually made a difference. Because the use of crystals is still considered a pseudoscience and is not a religion in itself. So it's not Wicca, it's not witchcraft in its own, because other cultures over thousands of years, ancient cultures, have also been using crystals, not just modern witches. There is still no scientific proof that they work the way we want them to, or we would like to hope they do. So if you have your own experiences, even after listening to this podcast, and you have had these experiences, that's great. I have too, so I use them periodically or when I feel like I need an extra boost. But like all the other topics I talk about, witchcraft and any sort of magic is not a replacement for modern science in taking away from medicines that you should be taking that your doctors had prescribed for you. So do not count on crystals being able to replace any sort of medication that you would need to be able to keep yourself healthy. If you want to carry it around to help with anxiety or stress, or maybe you have found one that makes you feel a little better when you hold it, or just from the pressure, if it's placebo or not, go ahead and use that crystal. Go ahead and use it in your spell if the symbolism of the stone works. But do not think that it is the only source of you healing or for something to work. I also understand people really want intent, and their energy in thinking about something so hard is going to solve all their problems, but it's not. You still got to take care of yourself in scientifically proven ways. You can't just discredit anything that literally has been proven to work just because you believe something else might be a better or cheaper option. Especially if you're getting this advice for these pseudosciences or religions and people are telling you they'll solve all your problems. If they are not a doctor, do not take medical advice from people who are not doctors. I am not offering you medical advice in this episode or any other episodes. The only thing I will ever tell you if you're not feeling good is drink water, and if you don't feel like it's working, figure it out if you need to go to a doctor. So now, since I just threw that very negative chunk of information at you, I just want you to know all that up front, because if I don't say it early in a podcast and I wait till the end of it, and if you feel like you've gotten all your information, you might completely skip that part of the podcast. I feel like understanding what a pseudoscience is and placebo up front is very important. But the idea of what these crystals do is witches and people use them as kind of some forms of healing. They kind of more boost energies versus actually heal you, because the idea of that they help vibrate or pull away or give out certain energies depending on what they are, because each one has its own traits that have been identified with each crystal. So if you find some websites that you like, or you find some books on crystals, you'll find that different crystals have different uses for them. Now I'm going to continue in getting into the fun stuff, but I do kind of want to go over just a real quick idea of how long crystals have been used. From the research that I've just been picking up over the last couple of days, just to give you some examples, crystals have been used for thousands of years, probably ever since people have been digging in the ground and started mining. There have been old mines found from thousands of years ago, even just for salt and other things, and they've been used for spiritual and religious purposes, and just jewelry sometimes too. Some of the examples of how various cultures over history use these crystals are, I'm just going to go over what cultures might have used certain crystals, not what they believe they did. So apparently, I'm saying apparently because I don't have 100% confirmation, because I had very limited resources for this specific information, is apparently ancient Egyptians used emerald and topaz, Greeks used hematite, bloodstone, amethyst, citrine, and ruby. In China and the Mayans used jade. I didn't know there was jade found in North America or even South America, depending on, I guess, a particular group. But I think Mayans were in North America. Yeah, they were. They were in North Central America. Ancient Sumerians, Greeks, and Romans used lapis lazuli. In India, they used moonstone. They probably used more than just moonstone, but the list I had just mentioned moonstone. And early indigenous peoples of North America used different types of quartz, I think. And I know there are other different crystals that different Native Americans used. And I think some of those were like turquoise. That's what I was thinking was turquoise. Okay, so I just pulled up another website, but it looks like it's a pretty old website, and I don't know how updated it is. And it looks like it's just a jewelry making website, possibly, but it says stones and shells used in Native American Indian jewelry. And it says some of it was agate, amber, amethyst, antler, but that's not a stone in itself. Types of aventurine, blackstone, carnelian, chrysocolla, I think in some areas, citrine. Did I mention citrine for them? Different types of coral. Dinosaur bone, apparently. That's pretty cool. I feel like that would definitely have some sort of properties to it. Fire agate. I don't know what fish rock is. Fluorite. So they used a ton of them. And I feel like for every sort of ancient culture, they had a large variety of stones and crystals they used. It probably depended on where they were living, because not all crystals form in all areas. It probably depends on what minerals are local to the area, how long they take, and how they're made, because just like the idea of like how diamonds need to have an extreme amount of pressure and the right amount of things to go into it, all the other stones kind of have their own particular way that they need to be made over time. And I'm not using the example of how man-made stones are, because I am not going to mention the use of man-made stones, because I prefer not to use them unless it's just for jewelry, and I do not use those for magical purposes at all. Moving on, I'm going to go over kind of what some things that witches and healers use crystals for. They use them to aid meditation or use them to help connect to their higher selves or their deities. They can said, and it could just be placebo. I'm not going to confirm or deny, because I do not know if it is beyond a placebo effect. Help relieve some pains or promote healing. If you believe they have some vibrations to help you, is very different than using them as a medication replacement. Some people use them to help balance their chakras, and some people use those when doing Reiki and along with using them with the chakras. I'll go over Reiki in another episode, probably sooner than later, because I do use Reiki myself. They help amplify spells, and they reflect/protect against negative and or emit positive energies to help promote positive things around you. And they're also good for decoration and using them in jewelry. I did have another section that went, or at least the attempt to say, how do crystals work and why do we think they work? But I already mentioned that in the idea of the pseudoscience thing, and I kind of combined those two topics together. But I did also mention that the fact that people think or claim they have metaphysical purposes and properties, and I'm just going to throw in what the definition of what metaphysics is. Merriam-Webster says metaphysics is a division of philosophy that is concerned with the fundamental nature of reality and being, and that includes ontology, cosmology, and other epistemology. I don't know what that means. Abstract philosophical studies. Why am I having such a hard time saying philosophical? I've tried to re-say that 4 times and have to delete it and re-say it again. An abstract philosophical studies, a study of what is outside objective experience. I guess what that means, and what I was trying to kind of put together as I was making this, because I do it throughout the week and sometimes I guess thoughts get jumbled and everything. It's based off of your experience and universal experiences outside of actual science, because if you believe probably in different religions and different dimensions, there are things that we don't know, and I guess that's what that means, because there are things that we do experience that we do not have answers for and why they are the way they are. So if none of that helps you, forget anything about the topic of just the definition of metaphysics, and we'll just move on with the rest of our crystal talk. Also, one little cool fact that I've known for a while, but if you look up, there are different types of technology in, I guess, computers and watches that use types of quartz inside the building of it and everything, and that's probably because it helps probably move energy around and stuff, and with electricity, and I'm not a scientist, I'm not a engineer of any sort, but apparently there is quartz inside technology, and that is really cool. So if we all have energy, maybe the energy within us is radiating or radiates through the crystals somehow, and that would be really cool. Maybe science one day will be able to confirm that different stones do different things even for us, but we don't have that proof yet. So I need to get off that topic. Okay, let's get into the fun stuff. Do witches need to use crystals? No, witches do not need to use crystals. I know some people that do not like crystals at all. They just don't think they work for them in their own practice, or they're just like, I don't want to have to be spending a ton of money, because they are very addicting. Once you start buying them, you want all of them. How do you use crystals? There are very varying ways that you can use crystals. You can either hold them or put them on your body when you're meditating, or if you're doing any sort of Reiki, chakra balancing, anything like that. You can put them in pockets bags, boxes, or keep them with you. I know a lot of women or people who have various pockets in their body. I'll sometimes put them in my bras, and then I take it off and there's a bunch of rocks falling out of my bra. I'm like, oh, that's where they went. And I've seen people joke about that a bunch as well. So I know I'm not the only one, but also I try not to put them just themselves in my pockets, because when I do laundry, I do not check pockets. So they will go through the wash, and I don't want them to go through the wash because there are some crystals that should not be exposed to water. And then I'm just going to forget them and lose them, or they'll get somewhere lost in the washers or dryers because I don't have my own washer or dryer because I live in an apartment. You can put your crystals in jewelry. Sometimes you can put them in your own little wire frames that you can make, or there's pre-made ones that are kind of like bulbs and you can put them in. Or you can put them on or in your witchy tools. I know some people will put them on their wands, the handles of their athames, or staffs if you use a staff. You could also put them in your spells to do some sort of boosting or protecting. And you can just place them on bookshelves, on counters, wherever your areas that you want them to be to help boost the vibes or the energy flows of that area. What do crystals look like? Well, there's a variety of different things that crystals look like. They can be geodes, where it's like you have a big rock and you crack it open and it's on the inside and it looks different. They could be just chunks of crystals, I guess, depending on if you go mining for them. And they have different jagged edges depending on their molecular structure. So they'll look very different depending on what they're made out of. They could be pointy or just chunky rocks, a bunch of different shapes. And if you want to tumble them and you have smaller ones, you could put them into a tumbler, or you'll find them pre-tumbled at crystal or witch shops. And then they're just kind of like pocket size. Some of them are a little larger, but those are more industrialized tumbling, or I don't think those would be hand smoothed out because that would take forever, especially when you have crystal balls. That would take a really long time. So they probably have machines now that get them into those perfect smooth spheres. And how do you take care of your crystals? Well, there are different ways to take care of your crystals. You can store them in bags and boxes like I've mentioned, and keep them on counters or just anywhere away from children or animals, because if you have more tumbled stones or stones at all, they can either get really heavy if you have large geodes in like your living room, which some people can get, but they're kind of expensive, and they can either hurt animals, or if they're chewed on or like put into something's mouth, they could be choking hazards, or some of them are toxic and they should not be anywhere close to anything's mouth. So just put them somewhere where they can be safe and they won't get little hands or mouths into them. If you want to cleanse your crystals, if you use them, you could put water on some of them, but not all of them. So when you purchase a crystal, do research on the proper way to clean them. So some can be in water, some cannot. You could put them in salt or dirt. Some of them you can leave in sunlight, but if they have very strong pigmented color, they might fade over time. And then a lot of people just put them under the moonlight, because you're not going to have your crystal fade under the moonlight. You could smoke cleanse them. So either you have a candle and you put it through the heat just right above where it's kind of warm. Or if you have incense, you can have incense swirl around it, or you can put it through it however you want. You could do Reiki on them if you are attuned to do Reiki. I'll go over what it being attuned to Reiki is later. And if you have selenite, this is the only crystal that I know I use to cleanse other crystals. The selenite, you can either get a slab of it, you can get some just chunks of it and put them with it, or you can get bowls that are made of selenite. And selenite is known to help cleanse other crystals. One thing that I do want to go over as well, that's kind of more of just a PSA, be on the lookout kind of thing, is how to know if your crystals are real. I have mentioned that our places you can buy crystals or different tools, but not all of them might be real, or they might be man-made. If you are okay with using man-made crystals, that's perfectly fine, but they almost have to be real crystals. You can tell based on certain crystals based on the weight and how they feel. You can tell based on their temperature. If they heat up really fast and don't stay cold, it's probably either glass, plastic, or some sort of like resin, like plastic resin, not the resin you use in the incense. And how hard they are. Different crystals have a different scale of how hard they are. So look up what that scale is. I think it's called the Mohs scale. It's Mohs. If you can see ink inside of cracks, it's probably just a plain quartz that ink was injected to just to give a particular look. You'll probably find those quartz or plastics that are made and injected with ink at craft stores, Five Below, dollar stores, or if you go to places such as Home Goods, TJ Maxx, or anywhere that's like a home store where you can buy decorations. You can totally buy them and use them as decorations, but they might not be real, and that means they probably won't have the properties and do the things you want them to do. Also, if you just go to regular stores that are kind of popular with the witchy feel, I know there are some teenage shops. I know Hot Topic in particular is where I've grown up shopping at and buying some of these things before I became a witch. I would buy these little crystal jewelries, and I didn't think they were real because it's a shop that teenagers and young adults, and now it's adults, because I shop there, where it's made out of plastic or made out of resin, and it's not real. It can look cool, you can use it for aesthetic purposes, but it's not going to do the same thing as what a real stone would be. Even if it looks kind of close to it, it's probably not. You can put your intent into these objects and wear them for aesthetic purposes all you want, but if they are not real, they might not work like crystals should. So, here we go. Here is the fun stuff that you are probably waiting to listen to, and I made you wait about 22 minutes to hear it. I'm going to go over what the beginner list of the best crystals that I think you guys should use as beginners or look into, and what their metaphysical associations are. The first one is clear quartz. It is good for protection, healing, and psychic powers. And it is also good as a substitute crystal that you can use if you don't have another crystal, because it is clear. This is where your intent is really good to use. You put your intention into what you need. If you need more protection, or if you need something for dreams, or if you need some energy boost, focus on that when you're using your crystal, and it should or might absorb some of that intent and energy. The next one is amethyst. It is good for healing, peace, love, protection, courage, and happiness. So any spells or any sort of energies you're trying to get out of that, those are good for that. Rose quartz, it's good for love, peace, happiness, and fidelity. Black tourmaline is grounding and absorbs negative energy. Hematite is good for healing, grounding, divination, and protection. Citrine is good apparently for anti-nightmare, which I did not know, protection and some psychic uses. Carnelian is good for protection, peace, healing, and courage. Selenite is good for reconciliation and different energies and also cleansing. Tiger's eye is good for money, courage, energy, or luck and divination. Lapis lazuli is good for healing, joy, love, fidelity, psychic stuff, protection, and courage. And I've also used it to lucid dream a little bit. Obsidian is good for protection, grounding, divination, peace. Fluorite is good with using like mental, I guess psychic powers. This one just said mental powers. It comes also in a variety of different colors, so they might all be a little different depending on what the color is. They work good with your conscious mind. They also are used to strengthen certain thoughts and also soothe strong emotions. The good thing about this particular list that I've come up with is a lot of them have the term protection in it. And what a lot of new witches or Wiccans need, or what they say they need, is I need some protection. I need protection. I need to feel safe. I'm still nervous. I feel like I need a little extra protection. So if you need some of that protection, getting some of these crystals might help you feel a little better if you feel they help protect against negative energies, or they help suck out negative energies that are in you. If you've had a rough day, if you have some anxiety, focus on these crystals. If it's placebo or not and you feel better, get some if you want some. Even if it's just using them in your hand and you're squeezing them or rubbing them between your fingers and hands, just like you would with a stress ball. Whatever works for you. If you don't have crystals yet, there are a variety of places that you can get crystals at. You can get them at witch or crystal shops. If you live in areas where there's a lot of land or there's a lot of like gravel roads, sometimes you can find some quartz pieces. I don't know how pure they are, but I've kind of gone through dirt roads or walking, or even some parks where there's like broken up rock and stuff, and I've found some kind of cool rocks. I won't find an amethyst in the middle of a park, but you never know. Maybe you live in that area. I don't know. You can dig for them. I know there are mines you can go to, not like underground mines, but they're like giant dirt mines, I think, in different areas. I know some of the closest ones to me are in North Carolina, where you can dig in these giant areas, bring your own tools, and you can sift through the dirt and dig in the ground to find crystals. And I definitely want to do that one day. You can find them in quarries, forests, or mountains, depending on where you live, or you could be gifted them from people, and sometimes it's just as magical when you're giving or have received crystals as gifts. Sometimes there are online retailers if you find that they're safe and they do sell real crystals. Just kind of look at reviews and see what people think. I know there are people on Etsy that sell crystals, or just other online shops that they order their stuff from larger wholesale retailers, and then they just distribute it to you. So if you don't get them in person and you don't know or not if it is a reputable retail site, just do your research, look at reviews, and then only maybe get a couple then, and then once you find out what they are selling you is real, then you can always order more. I prefer to get all my crystals in person. I happen to live in an area, thankfully, that has a good quantity of shops or shows, like large road shows that come through with crystals and stuff. But I like to have a connection with my crystals, and I've known sometimes, like, you'll be sifting through an entire bin of rocks and crystals, and you just don't connect with them. Or you're looking for a particular one and none of them connect with you. And then maybe you connect with the ugliest looking rock or crystal that you see, and you're like, I don't know what it is about it, I just want it. And then you find another pretty one and you're like, it's just not doing it for me. And if you are the type of person like me that likes to pick your crystals out in person, here's a couple things that you can do to kind of maybe get that sort of feeling or experience. You can just hold them in your hands and see if they call to you. And sometimes you'd feel vibration, you might feel a heat, you might feel cold, you might feel a tingle. I've held stones before that have shocked me, literally shocked my hand, and I just put them back down, and I'm like, I didn't feel too great with that one. So just holding them in your hand and see how you feel. You can grab whatever just grabs your attention. Sometimes you'll see something and you're like, that's it, that's the one. You can just buy them, and you don't have to worry about if you connect with them. If you're not using them for healing purposes and you're just throwing them in a spell, just go ahead and put it in the spell. I personally don't feel that if you're putting it into a spell and you're not keeping it almost as a personal token, just use it. It's just like you don't pick your food based on, oh, this makes me feel really happy looking at this beautiful cut of steak. You buy a steak. If it looks good enough, you buy it and then you eat it. If you don't know what crystals would work for you, if you're looking for a particular type of crystal purpose, do your research and see what types of crystals will work for your magical things. If you're wanting to do something with protection, or if you want to do something with a money spell, look up all the different crystals that might be associated with protection or money spells, and then buy those based on that research. And I only have a little bit more information for you on crystals, so we're getting close to the end, and I just want to go over some crystals that are associated with the chakras. So if you are doing some chakra work and you might already have crystals, or you want to buy some and kind of try to balance your chakras or do some energy work, for your crown chakra, you can use clear quartz, amethyst, or selenite. For your third eye, lapis lazuli, amethyst, purple fluorite, and black obsidian. For your throat, you can use blue lace agate, turquoise, lapis lazuli, aquamarine, or solidite. For your heart chakra, green aventurine, green calcite, jade, or rose quartz. Solar plexus, you could use calcite, citrine, tiger's eye, and yellow tourmaline. For your navel or sacral area, you can use tiger's eye, carnelian, citrine, and moonstone. And for your root chakra, which is the last one or the lowest one on your body, is garnet, onyx, hematite, and bloodstone. And I'm just going to cut this off right here because we're hitting a 30-minute mark, and I don't want the episode to get too long because I could probably make this episode 15 to 20 minutes longer. So if you have any questions on crystals, feel free to reach out to me. I could provide you with a couple of sources that I have. I do have some books that I use, so if you're interested in some of my information, or if I've used a particular book and what I think about it, or a website, hit me up, let me know. Otherwise, the sources that I have used today for the websites, and some books as well that I have written down that I've used to pull some information out for you. Hopefully all the information I've provided to you today is accurate, but if you want to do your own research based off of the sources I've used for this particular podcast, I will put them in the link in the description of today's episode. So if you haven't followed me on any of the social media links, you can follow me at catsteaandwitchcraft on Instagram, on Twitter at catsteaandwitch. You can also send me an email at catsteaandwitchcraftpodcast@gmail.com. So I'd like to say thank you for everyone that listened all the way up till this point into the podcast. I appreciate every single one of you, and I will talk to you guys next week. Blessed be.